Today's episode of Path to Power is brought to you by Greenman, an Irish investment management firm with over 20 years of experience.
Greenman Open is a European long-term investment fund, or LTIF. It's focused on grocery-anchored retail real estate. These are the kinds of properties that some investors believe remain essential even in uncertain markets. People still need to buy food. That's what they say makes this sector more resilient and more stable over the long term.
Unlike many alternative investment funds that are only available to professionals, Greenman Open is open to a wide range of investors with lower minimum investments and a highly regulated structure.
Just remember, all investments carry risk. Values can go up or down, and past performance isn't a reliable guide to future returns. Greenman Open is a regulated LTIF, but you should always speak to a financial advisor before investing. Learn more on the website greenmanopen.com.
Hello and welcome to this, our latest edition of Path to Power. I'm Matt Cooper.
And I'm Ivan Yates.
So we have so much to talk about in the presidency today, all the runners and riders and fallers. And we also want to talk about wastewater for Dublin and an objection that has been made, which could have very, very serious consequences for the provision of housing. And we also want to talk about the dispute, the strike by the school secretaries and caretakers, and the failure by the teachers' unions to provide adequate support to their work colleagues. Okay, that's my take on it. It might be that Ivan will disagree when we get to it. But let's talk first about all of the presidential news. The slow bicycle race has definitely speeded up. And let's first talk about the man who was once known as the Teflon Taoiseach and who's now finding that whereas once nothing used to stick to him, now his past is sticking so badly he cannot shake it off. Because when Bertie Ahern on Thursday evening admitted that he can't run for the presidency because he wouldn't run as an independent because he's a Fianna Fáiler to the core and Fianna Fáil weren't having him. He also angrily went back to the Mahon Tribunal and the unjust findings, as he sees it, about him and how it's damaged his reputation. And I suspect there's a lot of people who are just going to be going, tough luck.
Well, after we recorded last week the 50th anniversary in Glasnevin Cemetery of De Valera's death, had all the good and the great of Fianna Fáil there. And Bertie did a doorstep interview in which he chronicled last December, in April and May, how he'd contacted Fianna Fáil headquarters to get clarification of whether he'd get backing.
And sorry, there was a great line from Miriam Lord about how he showed no memory loss in the way that he had when he'd given his evidence to the Mahon Tribunal. So he could detail everything perfectly.
He did. So he I text someone, a mutual friend of ours who was close to him, and because I said to you, Bertie is just over Micheál Martin's dead body, is he going to get a Fianna Fáil nomination? And when they put out his son-in-law's podcast, the critical thing was he was never going to run as an independent. And, we discussed this and I said, just a full stop on Bertie, this ain't happening. So anyway, what happened was I text this friend of Bertie, I said, look, this is Comical Ali stuff. Remember Comical Ali? He was the spokesman for Saddam Hussein. The coalition of armies were on the door of Baghdad and he said they were winning the war.
The statues were falling behind him in the camera.
So I said, this is Comical Ali stuff. It's embarrassing. I said, look, what part of don't call us, we'll call you, which is the Fianna Fáil leadership position, does he not get? And he actually made a show of himself because it's been absolutely evident that he had no support to get a Fianna Fáil nomination from the leadership.
So Micheál Martin even said it out loud.
He said even worse. And
he wouldn't vote for him.
If he was on the ballot paper, he wouldn't vote for him. And
although, as somebody has pointed out,
this has backfired on Micheál now.
Well,
really big mistake now.
Because as somebody else pointed out, I can't remember who it was said this, but he's unwilling to back Bertie Ahern for the presidency because of the stuff that came out of the Mahon Tribunal, and yet he was more than willing to deal with Michael Lowry out of the stuff that came from the Moriarty Tribunal and use him as a broker to get back into power. why would you treat Michael Lowry, a former Fine Gaeler, differently to treating your former party leader, Bertie Ahern?
Well, as we wade into what's been happening in the last 7 days since last Sunday when Micheál, we spoke about last Friday how they were on the phones, Jack and Jim Lawless and Micheál, to get support for Jim Gavin. And Jim Gavin has been on the road, Donegal, Galway, Clare, all over the place all week and hasn't done any interviews focusing on it. So what has emerged is this. My feeling on Tuesday was, and I was actually on Morning Ireland, I said, Jim is going to win this 50-20 out of 71 votes. And I said it's quite comfortable simply because what Fianna Fáil most want is to win. That in any election, in any circumstance, that's all they're in. That's what they do. That's their DNA. And there is a view within Fianna Fáil that Billy is likeable, and all of Billy Kelleher is likeable and all that, but he won't be president, he won't be elected, he's not a winner. And that's the problem that he has. Now, I was speaking to the Kelleher camp and they said, no, well, look now, he's a TD since 97. They said he's never lost an election. He got a second MEP in and all this kind of thing. That's actually not true. He lost in 1992 by 25 votes to Liam Burke, his cousin, in Cork North Central. But the truth of it is that since Tuesday, people who've met Jim Gavin have been impressed face to face, our meeting, very, in their homes and so on, very much like the Senate campaign. And what's actually emerged is, and it started off, I'll vote for you in spite of my resentment to Micheál. Not because of Micheál backing him, in spite of it. Because they resented that they were kept in the dark. This had been going on for months. That they had no clue that Fianna Fáil were committed to a candidate, that they were going to run a candidate at all. And they feel deeply inside. And what it's now on. So I was speaking to a couple of TDs last night and I said, to take Cork. And I'm told the only, apart from Micheál's own vote, the only TD that's guaranteed to vote against Kelleher and for is Christopher O'Sullivan. Nearly all. And I text a couple of TDs in Munster and I said, they're saying you can't be relied upon to support Jim Gavin despite the leadership. And some of these are office holders. And, they just text back, yeah, meh, all this kind of thing. Like, so what? So what I'm seeing is for the first time a clear fracture in the authority of Micheál. And I would go as far as to say that this has been a pivotal turning point in him becoming a lame duck leader. OK,
let's take a few things through this. First of all, no matter how upset Bertie Ahern might be, there will be people who will remember how he treated Albert Reynolds back in 1997 when it came to securing the nomination, when famously Bertie showed Albert Reynolds his vote before it went into the ballot box in the secret ballot, which was the point that the wily Albert Reynolds realised.
But again, that was about winning. He felt that Mary McAleese had a better chance of winning. It wasn't personal.
Yeah, and I suppose Micheál Martin will feel that there was too much danger involved in bringing Bertie Ahern up. And as I said to you in previous weeks, it wasn't just the stuff in relation to the Mahon Tribunal. It's the blame that a lot of people attach to Bertie Ahern for the collapse of the economy of the 2008, 2011. Even things like featuring the lyrics in the CMAT song, which has got an awful lot of prominence.
Just explain that to me. She had lyrics on this,
There's a song, yeah, when she thought about how basically her generation had suffered when they saw her parents at the hands of the Berties and things like that. So that has actually hit a nerve with a certain generation as well. And I think Micheál Martin was clever enough to realise it would bring back all sorts of bad stuff about Fianna Fáil that would do damage to the party in power at present, and he decided against it. Now, the other thing which I think is going to be of real interest, I mean, you presume that Fianna Fáil have done their full due diligence on Jim Gavin. As it is, there are people asking, was he really a closet Fine Gaeler or was he always a Fianna Fáiler? There are people...
Well, that isn't a crime, actually.
No. But it might be in Fianna Fáil if they're nominating him to run as their candidate in the election. But I suppose, there's little enough known about Jim Gavin's views on many political issues. Now, you may say that that is not what the presidency is about, but you've got to expect that he's going to get asked a lot of questions during interviews and during debates during the presidential election campaign. You cannot go through a campaign skipping debates. Now, Now, as I say that, I remember that Michael D. Higgins skipped a few during the 2018 presidential election, including one that we hosted on The Tonight Show, where every candidate, bar Michael D. Higgins, turned up. I think he didn't want to talk to you, Ivan, if I remember rightly. But he also was making a calculation that he didn't need, as the incumbent, to get into debates necessarily with the challengers. That's not going to be the situation this time. Everybody has to get in. And that has actually raised another interesting point as to whether Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil might think it's wise to allow their councillors to let a few independents onto the ballot to make it for a bigger field during radio and television debates, in that it's easier to hide in a bigger number. Whereas if you only have a small number, say maybe 4 candidates, as in a Fianna Fáil candidate, Fine Gael candidate, Catherine Connolly is the independent from the left, and a Sinn Féin candidate, if you only have those 4, then it's harder to hide during debates and more likelihood of getting embarrassed. And we'll get back to potential embarrassments in a minute. But could it be that when we get into a Fianna Fáil secret ballot, that we'll discover that the numbers voting for Jim Gavin, who we still take it will probably win, might not be as overwhelming as the initial reports are suggesting, that there could be a groundswell to Billy Kelleher in a secret ballot to give Micheál Martin that little bit of a kick.
Yeah, so what do I think will be the score? So 5 p.m. this evening is close of nominations. 11:30 on Tuesday is they'll make a 10-minute speech each. There'll be Q&A and the vote will take place. And the figure that I hear mentioned now amongst the Kelleher camp is 27, that they think they'll get to 27. I think myself some of the declarations for Jim Gavin, I'd like to see their paper. In other words, they're saying they're voting for him, but I wonder. And if the cap fits there, you know. But basically, the situation is, I think by closing nominations tonight, he'll have the magic figure of 36. And, you know, in all these things, it comes down to the maths. You only have to win by 1.
But when is the actual vote?
11:30 on Tuesday.
11:30 on Tuesday.
Okay. And so therefore, the way I see it is that the strategy was that he's doing very well in Dublin. He's got like people like John Lahart, you know, who would never be sort of that, you know, supportive, never got a whole lot from Micheál, is definitely supporting. They see they're all having their photographs taken with him. They like the cut of his jib.
They support him because they think he's a winner, not because they think he's
Dublin.
Martin's
and
man.
because he's Dublin.
Yeah.
And Dublin is 12 constituencies, and you know, they basically are looking at a resurgence of Fianna Fáil in Dublin, the green shoots of that coming in last year's general election. So I put it like this. In Munster, Billy is... So I take a couple of people. Timmy Dooley. I met Timmy during the week.
He's a big mate of...
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I says to Timmy, I was meeting him about other business, official business. But anyway, I said, by the way, I said... they have you down that you can't be relied upon, you know what I mean? And I said, you know, what were you going to vote, as much as said? And so he did the usual thing. He said, well, I agree with what you said, more than Fianna Fáil love winning. But he as much as said, well, you know, I'm a deep personal friend of Billy, so go figure yourself. But put it like this, he would be in the 27. And put it like this, would see the merit, you know, would be pro-GAA and all that. Cathal Crowe, interestingly, came out for Gavin. Malcolm Byrne came out. Like, I put it like this, I think that Gavin has impressed people. On the issue of what are his views and what he's saying, there's been a deliberate policy for him to do no interviews until really next Wednesday, because the idea was, if he started doing every interview under the sun, people would say, "Oh, you're taking for granted." You know, so until he's officially a candidate, he's not going to get into that stage, which obviously Heather Humphreys has now got into. But
we'll get to that in a little while.
Exactly. Indeed. But so, I in terms of Jim, he is an unknown quantity, and like people do say, how will he stand up? Just say, you know, in interviews, people get under his skin. How will he react to that? Whereas, you know, Heather Humphreys had a performance during the week on the News at 1, which was the kitchen sink mostly, and she had that kind of I got that one wrong or whatever. But they never got under her skin, and interesting at this big dinner last night, the IBEC dinner. She was there in the company apparently of Q4, who may be or maybe not working for her. But
sorry, just to explain, Q4 is a public relations company.
Jackie Kelleher.
And Martin Mack and others who you probably would more readily associate with Fianna Fáil.
So that's exactly the way it was told to me. Poor Micheál is so addled these days. He turned up in his suit and had to go
in his lounge suit,
in
rather than
his
dressing,
Italian suit, and had to go back and get changed.
Oh, somebody in protocol will suffer for that anyway, won't they?
Indeed. This was all the usual stuff, the good and the great. Colin Hunt, the new president of IBEC,
the chief executive of AIB.
Yeah, and let's be clear. Heather is emerging as a very serious candidate for this. But for Jim, I believe he'll get the nomination. Let's see how he stands up to scrutiny on all these questions.
Before we get to Heather Humphreys, what did you make about this late Bob Geldof intervention? I mean, I wonder, did Bob Geldof think at the 11th hour that he could actually get the Fianna Fáil nomination? Would Bob Geldof not have been thinking of running as an independent? And I wonder who are the people behind Bob Geldof. I have a suspicion that it might be people involved with his old school, Blackrock College.
Yeah.
Because he has been involved there in a little bit of fundraising activity for them. And I think he may also made a donation in relation to a new library in Blackrock College. And funnily enough, somebody was telling me about this about a year ago. And it had got fallen out of my mind, but was saying, watch this space, Bob could be around in the next year. And now it's suddenly striking me, maybe this was what actually these people were thinking about. But if they were, I suspect there was a degree of political naivety in thinking that they could come so late to the party and try and win him a nomination via the council.
Yeah, this has been a strain point for me. Two of my, I would say, close friends, David Harvey and Andrew Hanlon, formerly of TV3, are pals of Geldof, and they were discussing openly, particularly David, in 2018, that he would run. And I actually felt, because, there really was no one, none of the parties were taking on Michael D. There was an opportunity then. To be honest with you, I kind of fell out with them this week. I said, where are you going? The guy is 74.
Sorry, are they behind this?
Yeah, in my view.
Yeah, because
there may be others.
There's others that were Blackrock College alumni who I'm
but like this,
of.
because they're known to me and so on. And I spoke to Andrew about it, and I said, Andrew, the man is 74. He is completely anglicised, anglicised at this stage. Sir Bob, and all the stuff with the oath to the when you're made a knight of the realm, you have to swear allegiance to the crown. And I said, first of all, we don't need a geriatric. Secondly, he has no resonance with the council. But the idea in 2018 was that he would get a Fianna Fáil nomination. That was the context of it. So the conversation happened last Friday between Micheál and Sir Bob. And Micheál said, look, the same way to Bertie, I'm committed here. I'm sorry. Thank you. Like, where do people think they're going? February was the time to have those conversations. The latest April, and say, look, I'm available. So I actually heard this morning, well, it's now kind of 90% that Bob has made up his mind he's going to go for it. A bit like McGregor outside the gates of Leinster. Like, where do you think you're going? I mean, like, let's be honest about this. And I've had a situation for nearly every day this year, someone would say to me, are you going for the presidency? And like, the lack of self-awareness of some of these people, it is just unbelievable in terms of, what is Sir Bob's relationship with councils? It's like something he'd wipe off his feet in terms of there's how lowly they are. And, the kind of way he's denigrated Irish people and Irish public life and so on.
Banana Republic?
Yeah, and put it like this. I get the Live Aid Band-Aid thing 25 years ago and all that.
Oh, sorry, it's more than that.
Okay.
It's 40 years ago.
Okay, well, right, fair point. So the point about it is this, and I was saying to Andrew, get a grip here. This is just nonsense. Because, the councils, there's no, the most anyone could get is 14 TDs that are spare. You know what I mean? Your Jerry Cockwell's, Independent Ireland. Who could you, and in fact, Maria Steen has perhaps the best one to get the number.
She's got one from Carol Nolan so far, and we'll get to Maria Steen in a moment.
But the Sir Bob thing, it is just hubris on steroids.
But isn't it amusing, though, how people change? Because I sent you a photograph over the weekend. I was at Electric Picnic, and I sent you a photograph
of Kneecap
when I was at Kneecap,
right?
Because I thought you would greatly approve of my presence at Kneecap. But it's funny because they're appealing to an audience at the moment, is it sort of... I won't say it's anarchist, but it's anti-establishment, and it's during their stage set, they're shouting abuse of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and the rest of it and stuff, which in some respects is what Geldof used to do with the Boomtown Rats 45, 50 years ago. And the older generation used to tut-tut. Would you look at that scruffy lout with his long hair and him swearing and cursing about Ireland and it's a terrible place. And yet here he is now, Mr. Establishment Man, so many years later, looking to be... It just shows you the journey that many people go on in life. So could it be, Ivan, that we're long past that one of the lads in Kneecap could be running for president?
Well, good luck to them. I mean, but the point about it is this.
You didn't ask me, did I enjoy the show?
No, I put it like this. Did you enjoy it?
No, not really. To be honest, I left it after the song that Your Sniffer Dog is Shite. That was the song that that's grand. And I left it after that one, left the crowds to enjoy it.
Yeah, well, you see, this part of my difficulty is that because we're going to come on to other issues that the media and the important people of the world have got bucket hats. They're at Oasis. They're at Electric Picnic. Like they're not actually, whether it's Tusla, whether it's the courts or whatever. People aren't doing their job in this country, and it's time that we actually focused on the right. Well, can I make this serious point?
No, sorry, just go on, make this serious.
No, the serious point is there's 949 councillors in 31 local authorities. Again, a bit like the 36 votes. This comes down to maths at the end of the day. 525 of those councillors are Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. They have a blocking majority on nearly all of these.
Might they not come back to the point I made earlier that if Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are being clever, they will actually want to have some of these independents
put it like this,
on the ballot paper?
Put it like this. I think... You remember the Katie Hannon debate, whether there was 10 leaders and all that kind of thing, and it actually worked out in favour of Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. I can see that point, but put it like this. Some of these people don't deserve a nomination, number one. Number two, I think there is a thing of bringing the whole thing into ridicule a bit, which brings us on to Joanna Donnelly.
Well, I get to that in a second, but... when is the ploughing championships on?
Oh, would you believe it? I'm down there for 2 days. It's the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the week after next. It's the 17th, 18th and that 16th, 17th, 18th.
And all the presidential candidates will be
you have to be in the field by then, yeah.
But I was just thinking, none of them were at Electric Picnic. For all you're going on about bucket hats and Oasis and all the rest of it. To the best of my knowledge, there was nobody down there canvassing for votes at Electric Picnic. Maybe they felt that they were only going to get a negative reaction from the younger people, particularly those who were wearing tricolour balaclavas. But I suppose it was a missed opportunity for Sinn Féin to have a candidate who probably would have got a good response from a lot of the younger people down there. And it could be that Connolly was down there, but if she was, I didn't see her, I didn't know anything about it. Anyway, we better take a break.
So we've Sinn Féin, we've Connolly, we've
Joanna Donnelly, we've Maria Steen. I got quite a few messages about your comments about Nick Delahanty last week, so I'll have to get to those
okay, that's
as well.
Right. Well, what I said was he's more suited to Dublin Bay South than he is to the presidency.
I'm not sure he's suited to Dublin Bay South.
Okay, well, that's okay.
I think that's a grave calumny upon my constituency. So we will get to all of that when we come back after this break.
This episode of Path to Power is brought to you by Greenman, an Irish investment management firm. Greenman Open focuses on investing in grocery-anchored retail real estate, designed to generate stable, long-term income. The fund is managed in Ireland. Learn more on the website greenmanopen.com.
Now, before making any investment, it's important to understand the risks. Investments could go up or down, and past performance is not a reliable guide to future results. Greenman Open is a regulated LTIF, but like all investments, it carries risks. You should always seek advice from a financial professional before investing. Welcome back to Path to Power. Okay, let's continue with our presidential coverage. We will also be talking later in this section about Dublin wastewater and a particular individual who might be holding up much needed and essential infrastructure. And we'll also talk about the school secretaries and caretakers strike, which is underway at present. But let's get back to the... Oh, sorry, by the way, there's also, don't forget, We have a subscription edition as well, where we have loads of other things that we'll be talking about, such as Britain's devotion to flags and whether that's coming into Irish politics as well, and lots of other things. But let's get back to the presidential race. Heather Humphreys. Senator Tom Clonan certainly delivered a blow to her this week, didn't he? You know, bringing up the fact that when she was Minister for Social Protection, she issued a green paper in relation to disability provision and supports. And the green paper was a discussion document, and the sort of ideas floated in it were shot down, not implemented. So she doesn't have the implementation of the initial suggestions hanging over her as a cloud. But even the fact that she brought it up for discussion is being used against her. Could it be that Simon Harris suffered very badly because of his Canturk moment? That this is a major impediment to Heather Humphreys, on top of the fact that she will be asked to account for over a decade of responsibility as a government minister?
Well, her response to that is that green paper is a prelude, it's a consultation document, a prelude to a white paper, and she didn't proceed after the consultation to the white paper stage. She dropped it. So that's her argument, was it was never implemented, and that she actually met Tom Clonan and others and listened to them, and that's her. And so I'm not here to defend her. I mean, like that's her story on this.
Is that something that will be used to hit her?
Sorry, look, this she asked for a clean contest. Look, everything will be used against her. The John McNulty situation, whereby to make him eligible for a particular panel for a Shannon election, she appointed him to as a Dublin Modern Museum of Art or something like that.
Don't be such a Philistine. Up in Kilmainham, the Irish Museum of Modern Art.
Okay, right, whatever it is. Okay.
It's a good job you were the Minister for Agriculture, not Minister for the Arts. Anyway. So
anyway, it was some kind ago, and she said, look, at that stage there was no Public Appointments Commission or vetting process and so on. She said it was a mistake. It was in the first few months of her time as a minister, and she did mea culpa on it. So all these things go into the round, and you know, Jim Gavin and everybody else will be faced with a heap of questions, and that's actually proper due diligence on it. But where we're at this week is this cacophony of losers going around the country trying to get on the ballot paper. And we have to talk about Joanna Donnelly. I mean, we actually discussed last June, she's left Met Ahern, and I actually said I'd heard that she was interested in the presidency and so on. Like, some of her reasoning and answers about left and right, and that she was worthy and all this for reading out the weather, I mean, how delusional. And I would just say to those people, her so-called friends who said, oh, you should go for it, like, they really did her a disservice, because some of the interviews were beyond car crash. They were. I
haven't interviewed her because we've decided we're not interviewing just people who put their names forward unless they are real credentials. And I suppose this does bring up a few other questions, right? She actually is, putting herself forward as a climate change candidate. That's interesting, but the president can have no influence on climate change laws or policies, whatever. She also wants to be an advocate for STEM, the science, technology, and all that sort of stuff, and particularly for girls, and that's right. But that's a job of a government minister rather than the president. And I suppose as well, you have to have some level, I believe, of public service achievement before you should be even standing to be president.
Beyond Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, or having read out the weather on the television.
Because I'm hearing, dead councillors are getting emails from these putative candidates.
That they know so little about.
Exactly. They have no connection. It is beyond nauseating, and I think it brings an element of ridicule.
You see, there's an interesting thing here, Ivan, that you would expect that anybody who is running for the presidency, particularly when they have to get 12.5% of the votes to be able to reclaim their expenses, which could be sizable. And sorry, as an aside on that, I was listening to it. I was off on Tuesday because one of my daughters was graduating from UCD, and as we were driving home from the conferring ceremony to get ready to go out, I was listening to Danny McConnell presenting The Last Word, interviewing Billy Kelleher. And it came up the thing about how much will a campaign cost, 750,000.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, and sort of like Fianna Fáil will pay for that. And like Aileen and myself were laughing in the car. Billy was making no commitments to spending any of his own money in relation to a campaign.
I think the understanding is the candidate is sort of expected to raise 200 grand themselves, and the party might put up 5.
But anyway.
But that's for a really proper nationwide postering campaign.
Okay. But
of which the max you'll get refunded is 250.
But you would expect if people like either Jim Gavin or Billy Kelleher for Fianna Fáil or Heather Humphreys for Fine Gael or Catherine Connolly or whoever the Sinn Féin candidate will be, that they all go in it expecting to win and having realistic hopes that they might be able to win. Some of the other people who are going have no chance of winning. Joanna Donnelly would have no chance of winning. Your pal Nick Delahanty would have no chance of winning.
I think all of Gareth Sheridan, all of those.
None. Okay.
No, all of those independents have no chance.
Which makes you wonder, why are they doing it? What is their motivation to spend money that they cannot recoup? And you sort of wonder, is it that they're trying to use the presidential campaign to push an agenda on something? So that's why I would wonder about Delahanty picking on the international protection system. You know, why is he picking on that? He says, is this a way to think that you're going to get votes? Maybe you'll get some votes, but it's not going to get him near winning the presidential race. So why is it that he is willing to spend money to make that a particular issue? Maria Steen is a very interesting woman. I think she's a very articulate woman when she has become involved in debates previously. She's straightforward and upfront about her point of view in relation to social issues, be it divorce, be it marriage equality, be it abortion. You know, we know where she stands. But again, is she looking for a nomination because she believes she has a serious chance of winning the presidency, or is it merely to try and get certain things on the agenda during the presidential debate to cause political rows?
It's a platform for people to espouse their views. And actually, that is one of the issues with Heather. The care referendum that was rejected broadly, 70-30, she was the director of elections for that on the government side.
But do you get the point I'm making?
No, I do get that.
I'm suspicious of people who go forward for election when they have no realistic chance of getting election as to what is their agenda, why they're doing it.
And for Delahanty and for others, that's true. But my honest opinion is that for a lot of them, it's purely self-delusion. They actually have a kind of notions of grandeur that I've looked into the mirror and I see a president looking back at me.
Well, sometimes people do realise. I mean, Tony Holohan realised that whatever his belief of what service he did to the country during COVID, I think he did come to the realisation that it was going to be too much of a bear pit to get into. And also when you see all the stuff this week as well about the experiences been reported by politicians of the abuse that they're actually taking. And when you also see, and be careful, we won't comment on this because there are charges possibly pending, but there was a woman arrested from not just making threats against Simon Harris, the Taoiseach, but specifically threats against his children, which is just outrageous.
Can I say also had an approach from Aon O'Riordan to say that he was glad to get the mention last week on the podcast, but he didn't approach Jim Gavin to stand for Labour. There seems to be some mixed messages about it, but I want to correct that because it obviously he didn't make that approch. So this brings us...
Now that you mentioned Labour, I have to say I was highly amused. Last week you went in considerable detail into Alan Kelly's takedown of Catherine Connolly and making the really relevant point that he essentially emphasised that she was not the heir to Michael D. Higgins, particularly by trying to promote Gemma O'Doherty in 2018. And then after we recorded, Alan Kelly came out and sort of apologised to the Labour Party for what he had said.
Did you see the two-shot of Menina?
Well, I'll get to that. Hold on. So I mean, this is masterful playing of the media by Alan Kelly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he makes the comments which causes all of the controversy. He then issues an apology while standing by what he said.
Absolutely.
And then you have the Labour Party meeting in his constituency. And yet again, he comes out, really sorry for any embarrassment I caused, but I'm not voting for that Catherine Connolly woman. And I think there's something like there was some survey on 56% of Labour Party members will not support Catherine Connolly.
Yeah, I've a news flash for you. The word I'm hearing on the ground from all political parties and none that Catherine Connolly's campaign is dying a death. Not my words. That literally it is not going well.
Do you not see all the stuff on social media that is going brilliantly, but it's only the dinosaurs of the mainstream media, of whom you are one, who are writing her off because there's a groundswell of opinion amongst the young people of Ireland.
Which brings us to the biggest missing part of the jigsaw.
Sinn Féin.
Yes. So Sinn Féin have said they'll decide on the 20th of September. Now that we know from James Brown that the closing date for nominations is the 24th of September, their procrastination, which I criticised so strongly last week, has turned to paralysis. Paralysis is the only word. Like, for a party, you know what I mean, that has over 50 Oireachtas members, a national footprint of MEPs, councillors, TDs and senators, to simply not, or to, you know, even to support Catherine Connolly at this stage is the tantamount to opting out. It's not actually, like, if they really believed in Catherine Connolly, they would have supported her at the time that Labour or Soc Dem supported her, or People Before Profit. So it's such an afterthought, like, that is not credible. So to me, it's absolutely a no-brainer that actually Sinn Féin don't have a choice. To be a solid national brand, political brand, they have to contest this. So I was in Castlebar on Wednesday night. Big chamber event. All the good and the great. The Oireachtas members were there. Alan Dillon, Paul Lawless, who I'd never met before. The Ain2 guy that got under the gate and the radar of my analysis in predictions.
He was delighted to have won his seat when you had completely written him off.
Absolutely. And the Miracle of Knock, I called it. So he was there, the CEO of the Mail. There's hundreds of people there. But who was there? Only the bowled, and I would say, actually, she is my favourite Sinn Féin TD. Rose Conway Walsh is someone I like. So I saw her and she was looking really demure in this lovely dress, and I went straight over to her and I said, Rose, yes or no? Just like that. And she said, Ivan, you're not even going to, how dare you? You're not even going to ask me, how am I? I said, I need only look at you and see you're $1 million. So I said, what's the story? I said, it's me you're talking to. And so anyway, she turned around and she proceeded to say to me, well, the big problem is a by-election in Mayo, Sinn Féin wouldn't hold the seat. And she actually had a running mate that did quite well the last time. And she said, when I said that, she said, go look at the figures. I clearly got...
And it's a 5-seater as well.
It is. Yeah. So the situation is, she seriously thought about it to the point of not only running for the presidency, but being president and the consequences of no longer being a TD, which actually intrigued me. But the point about it is this, and good luck to her if she runs. But, let's be frank about it. This is Mary Lou's worst moment of indecision in her entire tenure of the leadership of the party. And I just cannot understand. And I don't care who they run, Pierce Doherty, Jerry Adams, they have to run someone, but she's allowed her own candidacy and dithering about that to mess up the party's position. And like, they have their thinking, I think it's the 8th and 9th of September, it's coming
next
up.
Week.
I actually think that's the deadline for which they have to make a decision on this.
Two things. It's funny, just as you mentioned there, the by-election, if Mary Lou McDonald was to become president, would Sinn Féin win the by-election in Dublin Central? Or would the monk, Jerry the Hutch, run again?
Well, he wouldn't have a chance in a by-election.
No.
In a by-election, you've got to get 50.1% of the vote.
But would he just go in to screw the pitch again?
Yeah. Well, right. No, so he could.
I mean, who would win a by-election? That would be fascinating to watch. But I suppose the other thing in relation to what you make of the rumours that Pierce Doherty is the most eager proponent of Mary Lou running for the presidency, because then he could become the leader of Sinn Féin and provide a new impetus for the party in the Dáil.
It's a win-win situation, because if she gets elected, the vacancy, as you say. But if she doesn't get elected, she's wounded. And in both scenarios, he becomes leader. That's clever thinking.
And would Sinn Féin prosper under a Pierce Doherty leadership?
But sure, like, we're looking at this from Pierce Doherty's perspective. Like, that's a secondary question.
Well, I'm looking at it
the
now
national interest is always what's good for me in politics. But look, let's boil it down. I think there's going to be 4 candidates. I think the independents are not going to make it, but if they do, there are an irrelevancy to it. And I think the 4th candidate will be Sinn Féin. And I think we're looking at a straight fight between Connolly, Heather Humphreys and Jim.
Gavin.
And the jury's out on Jim insofar as will like. The phrase I use now is this election throws up more skeletons than exist in Glasnevin Cemetery. That is the reality of the situation. It is a barbaric campaign. So, brace yourself,
and
Richard.
Having faced the GAA media, is that a preparation for what will happen in relation
But
to...
you're with the GAA media, you can just say F off. I'm not answering that. You can't say that to the,
Well, in fairness,
wider,
isn't that, did we mention this last week that when Heather Humphreys was challenged by the Ditch on a particular issue.
She said FO.
Yeah. And fully, I've told that to a few people over the last week. Yeah. And they actually thought more of her for it. They actually think that if they heard her if all politicians were heard to tell people to F off on a more regular basis, they might actually like them more. We have two other major issues to talk about on top of the presidency. The first one is one that you were aware of and has actually surfaced on the front page of the Irish Daily Mail on Friday morning. And the headline of this is Legal Case Threat to Thousands of Houses. And the subhead by Jimmy McCarran's story is Serial Environmental Objector Seeking Judicial Review of 1.3 billion Greater Dublin Water Project. Now, before we get to that objector, right, just tell us about the importance of this particular Greater Dublin Drainage Project.
So, on the north and western side of Dublin, there are plans to build 300,000 houses. Back in 5 years ago, Irish Water prepared a project called the GDD, the Greater Dublin Drainage Project. And basically, it was 1.3 billion project, and they sought planning permission around about 2020, the same time as the Arklow project, sanitary services facility, which is now open. It has been stuck for 5 years in a situation, and so it's an orbital pipe that starts at Abbottstown and runs around through Clonshock, and then has a treatment plant, and the outflow it is into Dublin Bay of clean water and no smell. And the two objectors that have been consistently holding this up is a swimmer in Malahide called Catherine McMahon. But the guy I want to really talk about is Peter Sweetman.
And Wild Irish Defence is the name of the organisation that he runs.
So this man, in my view, has persisted in a 20-year campaign of what I call national sabotage. He has been a professional objector and litigant under the guise of environmental concerns. He has form in relation to the River Blackwater. He stopped a particular development, and he doesn't just stop at the Irish court system, judicial reviews, High Court, Appeal Court and Supreme Court. He also goes to the European Court.
Okay, can I give you a list? And this is from a newsletter that I subscribe to. It's an anonymous newsletter, but it is interesting. It's called the Irish Politics, what's the name of it? The Irish Politics Newsletter. That's what it's called, right? And it has a piece out this week in relation to Peter Sweetman, right? Yeah. And it has listed a number of things that he was involved. He's objected to the waste-to-energy plants in Ringaskiddy, Duleek and Tuam. He brought a case against the building of the Galway bypass and a €40 million bridge over the River Shannon. He was very involved in something that's caused a major problem, the state-owned harbour and island ferry port of Rossaveel in Connemara, 75% complete but has been halted because of his court action. He was heavily involved in the Corrib gas pipe dispute, and separately to what's in this, I know that eventually the judges threw that out because he continued with his objections even after the thing was fully built and operational. He's also objected to housing all over the country. He's opposed Intel's expansion, data centres, solar farms. He has, according to this report, issued 351 appeals against the forestry sector.
So can I just explain that? So forestry has been strangled, and of the 624 applications for forestry licenses to, the good carbon point, it takes carbon out of the system. It's really good for the environment, afforestation. He's objected to 351 of those. He has actually single-handedly thwarted the development of forestry in this sector. He also has developed the Lanesborough wind farm was a particular project. And my point is this: I went on to ChatGPT because you've been recommending that it would make my life easier.
I did not. That is a gross and utter misrepresentation. I have never told you to use artificial intelligence.
No, it's good for research. No,
you have to be so careful about what you find there.
Okay, well, what I want to say is this: how many profile articles have been done on this man who is single-handedly part of obstructing the modernisation of this country, and I could only find two. One was Mick Clifford and the other was the currency. And my question to you is this: given the significance of this man, given that on every platform, like last night in the RDS, the Taoiseach talking about this golden opportunity and national development plan, this guy is actually having more impact than the Taoiseach is. And is there anyone doing anything about it? No. And not only that, in this case, he can actually hold this up for a further 3 years.
Yeah, he's not breaking any laws. I think we have to say for legal reasons that we're not implying that he's doing anything improper. We disagree with it. We disagree with it on the basis that it's not doing much, if anything, on part of the national interest. But we do have to emphasise that the system allows him to make these objections. So as our complaint is not necessarily with him, it's with a system that allows one individual to do all of this.
And my point is this: what is the public good? What is the public interest? And we can talk about individual developments like Clonliffe and so on, for which there was one objector who thwarted that project. This is a project which is involving public money, public policy, but through Taoiseach Ahern.
Clearly for the public good.
This is undeniably in the national interest. And you have all these politicians with these launches and platforms and so on. And they're not addressing this issue that down in the weeds, like Irish Water, were absolutely crestfallen this week because they know exactly the road this is on, because even if he loses the judicial review, and all the environmental aspects and real genuine issues have already been gone into for the last 5 years by both the EPA, by on board Planola at the time. So in my view, they're already dealt with. This is just a legal ruse which will make some people a lot of money, and someone has got to say, stop. This is nonsense.
One last thing I want to talk about. I was almost amused, not really, to hear the Taoiseach Simon Harris very concerned on Thursday that the processes the Workplace Relations Commission should be used for the dispute, the strike that the school secretaries and the caretakers.
He was in favour of it or not in favour of it?
He was in favour of it, going for it to be sorted out there and the rest of it. Hang on a second. The only reason these people are on strike is because the Department of Education has not been actually talking to them or trying to get this actually sorted out. So we have a situation which is, and I think it's ridiculous that we have a situation inside in our schools where we have a two-tier structure, where we have the teachers and the SNAs who are entitled to pension entitlements and things like bereavement leave and the rest of it. And we have another second-class citizens within our schools, the school secretaries and the caretakers, who are employed on an inferior basis. And these are public servants who are doing a very, very important job. And I actually also thought that, I think there's a degree of hypocrisy there. I also think that the teachers' unions should cop themselves on as well a bit. Because on Thursday, they came together, the TUI, the ASTI, INTO, coming out, offering support to the striking force and members and saying that talks need to be taking place. And where were these people when the strike started? Where are these people? They're all passing the pickets.
Are you saying they should all be on strike?
If there's going to be solidarity amongst workers inside the schools.
So you want every school in the country closed?
Finished.
Is that your view?
I haven't finished, right?
Carry on.
Sorry. Because what will happen is, right, what will happen in relation to this, a settlement will be reached. And eventually what will happen is there will be payments made by the state to sort this out, and there will be a regularisation of things. So it's political stupidity to allow this resentment to fester and for people to be so upset, school secretaries and caretakers, that they feel the need to go on strike to get the equality with their workers. But it will also damage relationships in the schools for a long time forward. The school secretaries will look at their principals and they will look at the teachers and they will look at all the people who did the jobs, like answering the phone or paying the bills and stuff, undermining their strike. And then they'll see the teachers are now getting a little bit, we better support the caretakers and the school secretaries, on the basis that they're suddenly realising there's no Jack's paper inside in the toilets, and they don't want to be the ones who are going in to have to clean the toilets. So belatedly a week in, they're starting to offer some support to their colleagues. This is something that should have been sorted out on the basis of fairness and equity. And I think you know, Ivan, as well, given that you're married to a former school teacher and principal, you have a daughter as one, those people, they'll know the importance of the work done by the school secretaries and by the caretakers inside any school. Anyone who's a parent, like I am, who over the years has had many dealings with people inside in schools, knows the importance of the school secretary to the proper functioning of the school and also the interaction between the parents and the school. So yeah, I would be very supportive of the fact that in a country which is still running major surpluses, which has the money, this is the type of equity that should be taken for granted, and they shouldn't be having to fight for it during a strike, and they should have support from their fellow union members.
Okay, there's no doubt that all of what you say in terms of the role of the secretaries and the caretakers is the point is well made. They are vital to the functioning of the school. Are they all full-time positions?
Some are, some aren't.
Yeah. So the issue
which is the same with teachers, by the way.
Okay. The issue is, should they be getting a full occupational state pension? And my understanding is there was talks on the 27th of August in the WRC, and Force have said they'll only go back to the WRC unless the principle is conceded that they get a pension. And your view is they should get the pension, and I accept that point of view. But what I'm trying to say,
was the Department of Education at that meeting?
No, they were. But the point is this: what Helen McEntee is saying, that is effectively a precondition to going back into the talks, that they really concede the principle of the issue, that they get a full pension. And so therefore, I've no doubt that the issue will escalate. I also understand that a lot of lobbying has gone on with TDs around the country, and Jack Chambers is actually getting a lot of grief. I don't know if Helen McEntee is. But look, I think it will be settled at the end of the day.
So isn't it political stupidity not to have it settled before the strike starts? Given that schools are essential to the fabric around the country, this only creates bad news for the government.
Yeah, but on this particular week, the Exchequer returns were out, and public expenditure year on year is up 8%. And, we have the Minister for Health coming out saying that health spending is just unsustainable. The truth of the matter is, corporation tax for the month of August dropped 43%. It's very easy, come on a podcast or go into a studio and say, pay them, give them the pension. Someone's got to pay for this.
And I think we should finish. We forgot to use Bertie Ahern's best line earlier when he was defending himself. He said, "Friends gave money, not robbers or crooks." And on that
you love Bertie, obviously.
And on that note, we will finish this edition of Pat to Power. There's loads more in the subscriber edition.
I have to talk to you about Tusla. I'm really fed up with Tusla.
There's lots of things we need to talk about. That's all for the subscriber edition. So from this particular edition, from me, Matt Cooper.
From me, Ivan Yates.
Thank you very much for taking the time to join us.